Today post-game show back here inside the studio with Coach Jason and Matt. Coach is always preaching defense. He had a defensive acolyte supporting him today, but talk about the D.
A defensive back, mind you, he hit 4 interceptions today. The big difference in the game was that secondary and the pressure. And I also would say it was C.J. Stroud's legs. I think in the second half he extended some plays, brought some big first downs, and certainly Joe Mixon was able to finish it off.
If there was one thing I learned watching the game today, Coach saying that run the daggone ball time after time. And when you have good defense, Joe Mixon in that second half, 20 touches, 104 yards, and a touchdown. That kind of sealed the deal off of all of those takeaways, and he showed out.
Yeah, and when you're in the playoffs, it comes down to momentum changes in the game. That game changed on the muff snap by C.J. Stroud and the big completion. Before that, C.J. Stroud, 9 of 16, 83 yards and an interception. After that, 13 of 17, 199, and a touchdown. We said to it coming in, right? We felt like you can hang your hat on the Houston Texans playing good defense. You can hang your hat on them running the football effectively with Joe Milton. What had been inconsistent for them the entire year was the passing game. They showed up today. They made plays. Credit to them. On the opposite side, the Chargers, the inability to throw the football early in that game, getting away from the run, going to the play action too much early, missed opportunities. Tough day if you're the Chargers.
You know, I go back to that first quarter. It was a 3rd and 1. They could not make the 3rd and 1. They sat there and settled for a field goal. And I thought 2 field goals early in that game. That defense from Houston, obviously in the back end, it was the picks, but they stopped the run today. It made the L.A. Chargers one-dimensional. When you can do that as a football team defensively, that just makes it so much easier on your side.
And there's going to continue to be question marks about Justin Herbert. We saw the last playoff game where they lose to the Jaguars where they're up big, and we see him today not able to perform. The turnovers, his receivers didn't help him at all. Some drops at one, a pick 6. So he has to figure out a way to get over the hump and win a playoff game.
To hear a Super Bowl winner say you learned about how he preached the running game, he's done that for 18 years.
Your thought here on the back end of this game. Houston's defense so stout after really sleepwalking, not really having a whole lot of energy to them that last month of the season. What did you see from that group specifically?
Yeah, not even just the last month, Joe. That team started 5-1 and finished 5-6. So there were a lot of questions. I think that's why a lot of us thought the Chargers, given the way they had played down the stretch, had a really good chance to win this game. But in terms of the defense, and B-Mac talked about it before the break, they balled out. They showed up in the biggest moment. And it just goes to show, if you draft the right players, you can win games when it matters most. Kalen Bullock, the safety, going back to Derek Stingley Jr. a few years ago. Kamari Lassiter played well tonight. He's played well throughout the season out of Georgia. Last year's draft class, some guy named Will Anderson. By the way, if you're the Chargers, block Will Anderson. Don't leave him unblocked to destroy your quarterback. And the other thing I'll point to is this. It feels like both teams hopped into a time machine. It feels like the Chargers are charging in the worst way possible, in the ways that we saw a few years ago when they blew that lead in Jacksonville in the playoffs. And it feels like C.J. Stroud not only went back to 2023, but maybe 2022. The way he was running the ball, I thought he was Ohio State playing Georgia in that playoff game. So this is exactly where you want to be if you're the Texans, hitting on all cylinders as you get to the next round of the playoffs.
You know, Ryan, that's a real significant point with C.J. because throughout the entire season, number one, the expectations were super high because of how good he was his rookie year. And he kind of flatlined in terms of reaching those expectations. But tonight, he got off to a rocky start. But he was battle-tested, and he made the necessary plays. And you talked about the running. That's an element we don't expect from him. And the same can be said for the opposing defenses that are facing off against C.J. Stroud. But if he can implement that in his arsenal here or there, it actually helps the offense out. Because we forget that this is an offense, they're short-handed in terms of playmakers. No Stephon Diggs, no Tank Dell. The only legit playmaker they have in the passing game is, there you have it, Nico Collins. So other guys have to step up. But until that happens, CJ, we need you to become more of a playmaker at the quarterback position. So it's okay in improvising and taking off and getting down. Because we saw that in today's matchup, and every run that he made was huge in their efforts in getting into scoring range and, most importantly, scoring, especially in the second half.
C.J. Stroud becoming the first ever top 3 pick to win a playoff game in each of his first 2 seasons. So getting results and hopeful to now do something in a divisional round. we look at that run game by C.J. Stroud. It was additive, but
yes,
maybe we're looking past the real run game, that being Joe Mixon, who showed up in this second half. And yes, easier to commit to the run game and play calling if you are leading in a second half, but a $121 net rushing yardage for Houston in the second half. 47 in the first half. That recommittal to the run, where'd you see the greatest adjustment that made it that effective in the second half?
Well, the offensive linemen, they had a great job. They did a great job in leaning on the line from the Chargers, because you talked about the running game not really being effective in the first half. The offensive line did a better job. And Joe Mixon is a guy, all he needs is a crease. And I can tell you this much, guys, Joe Mixon is a vet. He's been in the league for quite some time. But if I didn't know any better, I felt like Joe Mixon was in his rookie year. He looks fresh. He looks energized. He has the burst that he needs. And he loves to lean on defenders. And that's what we saw. Joe Mixon is one of the best closers at the running back position in terms of needing to close a ball game with running the football. That's what he does, and that's what he provided today. And I talked about the Texans missing some key contributors in the offensive side of things. There lies an opportunity for Joe Mixon to do more, because if you don't have Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, opportunities are there. Joe Mixon took advantage of those said opportunities in the running game.
This is what did today mean for season. You fill in a name at the end of that sentence and you try and learn something, whether it's winner or loser. I'm sort of mulling my head around what did today mean for Justin Herbert, because it's a 4-interception day. It's disappointing. You're still waiting on your first playoff win, Ryan. But I don't know how much you put in the lap of Justin Herbert here, who really all season long executed at a high level in the absence of maybe some top-tier playmakers around him. What did today mean for Justin Herbert in your eyes?
Well, it ain't great. I'm sure it's going to be a long flight back. I give him a C+ performance. But listen, think about it this way. They started that very first drive of the game moving the ball like it was 7-on-7. Then they couldn't convert a 3rd and 1. That wasn't Justin Herbert's fault. The second series, they get down. He gets a sack on 2nd and 19, hits Will Dissly in the hands for what would have been a first down deep in their own territory. Dissly drops it. Dissly comes back and later drops the ball that ends up being an interception. So they have to settle for 6 points in those first 2 drives. And then at the end of the first half, the Texans score. The Chargers go 3 and out, and the Texans score again to get 10 points, going the halftime up the lead, and Justin Herbert 1 for 9 to end that first half. Although just to say he didn't play well, but outside of Ladd McConkey, I would like to know who helped him out, because the offensive line was in disarray after the first 20, 30 minutes of that football game, and then it was sort of trying to survive and keep your head above water down the stretch. And by the end, Justin Herbert and the Chargers drowned metaphorically in that game, because the way that the Texans got after it in the second half, I don't know if they were going to have a chance to come back with all the mistakes that they kept making. Justin Herbert threw 3 interceptions the whole season, as you mentioned, Joe. The last time he threw one on the road was week 2. So he went 4 strong, if you will, in Houston in a game that he would probably already like to forget.
In terms of Justin Herbert, individually speaking, we know he's ultra talented, but he's nowhere close to being in that neighborhood of some of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And because of how talented he is, naysayers, we're quick to put him in that cul-de-sac. No, he's not actually in the gated community. He's on the outside looking in. Because to your point, you look at the playmakers around him, or the lack thereof. When you're that guy at the quarterback position, you make those guys look better than what they actually are. Prime example, Josh Allen. That was a concern in terms of what this pass-catching position would look like for them in Buffalo. He made sweet tea with no sugar. I don't know how, but he was able to do so.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn đã đến với kênh YouTube của mình. Những video của mình tạo là những video tô màu đây. Và hôm nay mình sẽ lại tô màu những con vật cho các bạn xem này. Đây, những sản phẩm của mình. Đây là những sản phẩm mình chưa tô nha. Sản phẩm mình tô xong thì nó sẽ có những màu sắc như thế này này các bạn ạ. Đấy. Mình sẽ tô rất nhiều những sản phẩm này. Đấy. Và để tô được những sản phẩm của mình không thể thiếu được hộp sam màu. Đây là sam màu nha. Và bây giờ các bạn hãy cùng theo dõi mình tô màu sản phẩm nha.
Mình chi tiết tô màu nha các bạn.
Của mình, những video của mình tạo là những video tô màu đây, và hôm nay mình sẽ lại tô màu những con vật cho các bạn xem này. Đây, những sản phẩm của mình, đây là những sản phẩm mình chưa tô nha. Sản phẩm mình tô xong thì nó sẽ có những màu sắc như thế này, các bạn ạ. Đấy. Mình sẽ tô rất nhiều những sản phẩm này. Đấy. Và để tô được những sản phẩm của mình không thể thiếu được hộp xăm màu. Đây là xăm màu nha. Và bây giờ các bạn hãy cùng theo dõi mình tô màu sản phẩm nha.
Mình trực tiếp tô màu cho các bạn.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn tô tượng. Hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là dầu gội. Bây giờ mình sẽ bắt đầu tô nha. Các bạn thân mến, tượng của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là xà phòng.
Móc cho mũi tiếp theo vào. Tiếp tục móc. Cứ lần lượt từng mũi cho mình cho đến hết nhé. Mình sẽ móc tiếp những mũi còn lại cũng y như vậy. Tiếp tục này. Tiếp tục mũi nữa này. Mọi người cứ lần lượt cho mình cho đến hết. Rồi bây giờ tiếp tục móc. Lặp đi lặp lại những mũi giống nhau. Ok nha, giờ sẽ móc tiếp. Mình làm lần lượt cho đến hết. Mũi nữa này. Mọi người móc cho đến khi được cái đường viền hoa cho mình là được. Tiếp tục móc nhá. Rồi móc thêm 3 mũi bính. Nối vào. Mình siết dây nhé. Gỡ thêm chút len ra để sử dụng nhé mọi người. Giờ sẽ móc tiếp những mũi tiếp theo vào. Rồi bây giờ tiếp tục móc nha. Lần lượt từng mũi một. Mình sẽ móc tiếp cho đến khi hết. Tiếp tục nha mọi người. Cứ lần lượt từng mũi một. Mình móc tiếp này. Lặp đi lặp lại những cái mũi giống nhau. Rồi móc xuống. Tiếp tục những mũi nữa nhé. Tiếp tục nhé. Mọi người cứ móc lần lượt như này cho mình. Đấy. Từng mũi lên. Mình tiếp tục mình móc xuống. Rất nhanh thôi mình sẽ hoàn thành được nó rồi. Tiếp tục móc. Đấy mọi người nhìn này. Những cánh hoa rất là xinh như này nhá. Nó bám lấy cái phần viền như này. Mình sẽ móc nốt những cái phần còn lại cũng y như vậy nhá. Mình tiếp tục mình móc này. Cứ móc lần lượt từng mũi một cho đến hết nhá. Bây giờ mình sẽ tiếp tục mình móc. Đây móc xuống.